And now let's get to some breaking news. This is out of the Department of Homeland Security. A source exclusively tells CBS News that President Trump intends to nominate a government services contractor leader to head TSA. Let's bring in CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Sganga. Nicole, good to see you today. What can you tell us about this person that Trump could potentially hire?
Mugo, this is fascinating timing for an agency that has really had its hands full amid the longest partial government shutdown in history. David Cummins has served as senior vice president of citizen services at Serco, which is a government services contractor. He formerly headed up operations for the Salt Lake City Olympics, and this announcement coming on the heels, or really amid this ongoing DHS shutdown that has seen long airport checkpoint security lines at airports nationwide prior to President Trump's memorandum paying TSA officers, or back paying them rather. Although just this morning, the DHS secretary said that the Department of Homeland Security only has funding until the first week of May to continue those paychecks. This also coming as we know that more than 780 TSA officers have quit during this last DHS shutdown alone. That's on top of nearly 1,100 TSA officers who quit during the previous shutdown. So the acting administrator, McNeil, has testified on the Hill about this sort of state of confusion and instability at TSA, and she has called for a permanent leader. She will stay on as Cummins is going through the nomination process. He will have to go before a full Senate because TSA administrator is a Senate confirmed position. The last time we had a Senate confirmed TSA administrator, that he was confirmed back in 2022, that was David Pekoske, who served for several terms in that role.
Yeah, and Nicole, all of this brings us to what happened last night, because we know the Senate, they passed a new funding plan for DHS, right? So can you talk to us about this new resolution?
Yeah, look, it's a major step, but it's not the finish line. What the Senate just passed is basically a budget resolution. So it's not the final funding bill, but lawmakers have sort of agreed on the framework here, allowing Republicans to move forward with a plan to pour billions of dollars, specifically $70 billion into ICE and Border Patrol, which would, in essence, fund the agency for the next 3 years, the remainder of President Trump's term. The politics here are as important as the policy, though. Republicans have pushed this through without Democratic support, using a process that is called budget reconciliation, which lets them essentially bypass a filibuster in the Senate. Democrats, meanwhile, continuing to advocate for reforms dating back to the sweeping law enforcement and immigration operations in places like Los Angeles, Minneapolis, and Chicago. So as for what happens next, this will go to the House, but again, it's not a final vote on funding yet. Lawmakers still have to turn this framework into an actual bill. The president has given them a deadline of June 1st, and in the meantime, the Department of Homeland Security remains unfunded.
Yeah, and Nicole, you've also been speaking to several people within DHS. What are they telling you about what's going on in the department?
Mugo, it is amazing what has happened over the past 69 days in what is now the longest partial government shutdown. It ranges from the absurd DHS officials bartering for paper clips, staples. In some cases, they've run out of printer toner, office supplies, to FEMA running dry its disaster relief fund. It is on the brink of having to go into what is called imminent needs funding, where it can only use its money towards life-saving operations and recovery ventures. And this, as we are just a month away from the start of hurricane season. FEMA has also been unable to participate in the National Hurricane Conference. They had to suspend all of their training of firefighters and EMTs nationwide.
Wow.
We've also seen, as I mentioned earlier, 780 TSA officers quit. We're behind when it comes to FIFA planning. A lot of that coordination and intelligence reporting has seen a serious lag there. The U.S. Coast Guard also impacted by this, unable to pay 500 plus of their utility bills. And so it's not just what you're seeing, out in public. Obviously, we've seen all the airport lines, but this is really hurting the back-end operations for the Department of Homeland Security. A lot of the officials I'm talking to now saying we are at a breaking point. And if June 1st really is the deadline here, they're nervous that that's just not fast enough.
Yeah, it sounds very far away. Everything you just mentioned, Nicole, really puts it all into perspective about just how important that funding is needed and how quickly as well. Nicole Sganga, thank you so much for your reporting. We appreciate it.
Thank you.